lovely cuppa Grommit. Alright there guys, and welcome to 2025. That is right. Here we have, it is time for my first video of the new year. And we're starting off with a bang. Today it is time for Let's Talk About Wallace Grommit, Vengeance Most Fowl. Released in the UK on Christmas Day 2024 and everywhere else on Netflix January 3rd, 2025. I have been eagerly anticipating this movie ever since it was announced about 2.5 years ago. Because Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget came out a year ago, just over a year ago, and I covered that on the channel. I was fairly excited for that, but I was way more excited for this, because out of all the creations Aardman have made, Wallace and Gromit is by far my favourite. And you may have seen this cup here in videos gone by, in the past, in years gone by, when I've had it I happen to have had it with me sometimes. Well, I don't think there's any more appropriate of a video for this to be here than this one. It's literally my favourite cup that I use every single day, and I've got two of them. Right, enough about me, on to the actual movie. So, the main theme of this movie is Wallace having almost an entire reliance on technology. That's one of the points, and the other one, the obvious one, being the very, very long-awaited return of Feathers McGraw. The first villain in Wallace and Gromit, back in The Wrong Trousers from 1993. Now, all the Wallace and Gromit shorts, and then the only other feature-length film, which is The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, they don't really seem to feel like they connect to each other, like they're all their own separate stories, because none of them ever get talked about in the other ones. This is the first time where one of the films, whether short or movie or feature length, actually talks about the events of a different one. Which, of course, this one references The Wrong Trousers, since that's where Feathers McGraw first appeared. And this movie was absolutely fantastic. It was more than well worth the wait. And the reception for this movie seems to be a lot better than what Dawn of the Nugget got just over a year ago. This seems to be a much more loved movie than that one was. Maybe because we haven't actually had to wait as long for a new Wallace and Gromit movie than we did for Chicken Run. But if you saw the trailers, then you roughly understand what's going on straight away. Wallace's newest invention is a smart gnome called Norbot, who is turned evil by Feathers McGraw after he collects a bunch of things from when he's litter picking at the zoo, because remember, that's where he got taken at the end of The Wrong Trousers. And he creates a remote control very similar to the one he used in The Wrong Trousers to try and steal the blue diamond. And he hacks into the the security's computer, which can access any computer in the surrounding area. And he uses that in order to hack into Wallace's secret files. First, he's given the are you a robot thing, which sometimes if you search something up on Google, sometimes this will come up. You must have seen it before, where it will be something like, select all images with a motorcycle or traffic lights or a crosswalk. Those are the three usual ones that come up. But for this one, they used cheese. There were 3 images of cheese, two definite images of cheese, one image of a traffic light, and another image of the moon. The moon, of course, being made of cheese, was a joke all the way back in the original Wallace and Gromit short A Grand Day Out from 1989. They literally went to the moon because it's made of cheese. That was the joke. So it was nice that the very first short got referenced. And there were quite a few references in this. There was the motorcycle and sidecar from A Close Shave. That came back. The farmer from Shaun the Sheep, he makes a small little cameo. Obviously, the Wrong Trousers references being Feathers McGraw himself and the Blue Diamond. And the only reference to the Curse of the Were-Rabbit that I could find was PC Macintosh, who's played wonderfully again by Peter Kay, just like he was back in 2005. He actually has a much bigger role in this movie than he had in The Were-Rabbit, because the movie begins with a flashback of just after they'd captured Feathers at the end of The Wrong Trousers, where Wallace calls the police. He's the one who picked up the phone. So we get a bit more backstory in of his character than we did in Curse of the Were-Rabbit. But the only Curse of the Were-Rabbit references outside of that is there's a scene close to the end where the big climactic chase scene where Feathers is on a boat and Wallace and Gromit are on another boat chasing him. Of course, one of the jokes in that is the boats move really, really slowly. So it's supposed to be this dramatic, climactic chase scene, but the boats are going like this. They're moving about as fast as that. But on the sidewalk next to the canal is Mrs. Mulch, who was actually who actually spoke the very first words of Curse of the Were-Rabbit. The one who says, "Ooh, me prize! You've saved us, Auntie Pesto." Her. She makes a little cameo, which is a nice way to honour the late Liz Smith, who played her back in Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I mean, she was quite old back then, so she of course has since passed away. So it was a nice way to honour her, giving us a little cameo. And Ben Whitehead, who voices Wallace in this movie, he does such a wonderful job imitating Peter Sallis, who of course also sadly has since passed away. Ben Whitehead's voice as Wallace is so good that you can only just barely tell that it's not Peter Sallis. Only just. Fun fact, Ben Whitehead has actually been voicing Wallace a lot longer than you think. He actually voiced him in the Curse of the Were-Rabbit game that came out on the PS2 around the same time as the movie. So if you wonder why Wallace sounds nowhere near as good in that game than he does normally, that's why, because it was not Peter Sallis, it was Ben Whitehead. But that was nearly 20, that now was 20 years ago. Ben Whitehead's improved significantly as the voice of Wallace. And Aardman picked the best they could to replace such a legendary actor. So, some of the funny running gags in this movie, one of them being a news anchor called Anton Deck. Now, if you're not from the UK, you have no idea why that is so funny. But if you are from the UK, you know exactly why. It's because, Ant and Deck, Anton Deck, it's brilliant. It worked really well. So another one of the big plot points is this female police officer called Mukherjee, which I can't. But that sounds like something you shouldn't be allowed to say. I can't believe they've got away with calling her that. But I actually quite liked her as a character. She's a much younger police officer than PC Macintosh. He's actually about to retire. And he's putting the Blue Diamond from The Wrong Trousers back on display. It's like the very last thing he will do as a police officer before hanging up his police hat and calling it a day. And she is this much younger, energetic, and ambitious police officer, where Macintosh thinks that Wallace is the person who's created the crime wave, because all of the smart gnomes that are stealing equipment from all over the area. He, of course, made the original Norbot, and then Norbot made more Norbots, and then they just kept making more and more and more. To where they even built a submarine, which is how Feathers McGraw escapes from the zoo in the first place. He's also stroking a baby seal when the submarine rises up, which is a clear and obvious reference to Blofeld from James Bond stroking the cat. It's a parody of that. Then when Feathers finally arrives at Wallace and Grommit's house, one of the funny things about this is, if Feathers doesn't have the red glove on his head, Grommit doesn't know it's him. But with Wallace, it's the other way round. If he does have the glove on his head, Wallace doesn't know it's him. And when he took it off, Wallace says, "Good grief, it's you. Again." Because, of course, when Wallace discovered that it was Feathers McGraw doing what he did in the wrong trousers, he said, "Good grief, it's you." So, nice callback to the wrong trousers again. And the climactic final battle scene, which of course is on those boats, where Norbot had, whilst Grommit went to the zoo to find out what was going on, Norbot landed on his back when he fell from a big height, which reset him from evil back to good. And that's how all the other Norbots need to be changed back to good as well. They need to have their reset buttons pressed. So Wallace and Gromit may have stolen Macintosh's private boat to chase Feathers in. Then they fling a bunch of his prized boots at the Norbots to knock them into the water, and then Grommit will fish them out with a net and put them back on the boat and reset them. Then they go over a big canal bridge that's above it, very, very high up above a train track, and Feathers tries to set the boat off the cliff, of which Grommit actually falls off. It falls off and is hanging onto the edge of the boat that's hanging over the bridge. And this is where Wallace finally comes to the realization that the most important thing to him in life, it's not inventing, it's Grommit. He says, "I can live without inventing, but I can't live without my best pal." Which is a very, very emotional moment. As Grommit throws the blue diamond that's in the sack that he stole, supposedly, Feathers catches it and then jumps off the boat with an umbrella. I thought this was a reference to Mary Poppins for some reason, but I was told by one of the people I was watching it with that it makes more sense that it's a reference to the Penguin from Batman, because he always has an umbrella, and Feathers McGraw is a literal penguin. So he jumps off and lands on a train that right at the bottom, where on the train tracks, and the boat actually falls off the cliff, and Grommit starts falling with it, but just as he's about to land, he stops, because he's been held by Norbot, and all of the other Norbots are holding on to each other as well to save him. Then Feathers pulls out the diamond from the sack, takes a look at it, only to realise that it's actually a turnip, because originally, when Macintosh put away the diamond, he actually didn't. The diamond had actually been put in Wallace and Gromit's teapot for 30 years, and a turnip is what was being guarded the entire time. Not the diamond, a turnip. So Grommit literally does the same thing and pulls the old turnip switcheroo, as it was called, as Feathers is driven on the train out of the Yorkshire border and probably into Lancashire. So Feathers actually escapes. He isn't captured this time round. He just escapes from the law and from our duo. So what, are they trying to set up a third movie with Feathers McGraw? Because if they are, they're kind of milking it at that point, aren't they? The same idea. I mean, this is the first time there's ever been a direct sequel to a previous Wallace and Gromit film, short or feature length. Now that ending actually disappointed me a little bit because you had a train. We all know that the train chasing from the wrong trousers is the best scene in the entirety of Wallace and Gromit out of any of the films, short or feature length. The scene itself, the action, the music of that scene, it's so damn amazing. I thought we were going to get another one of those where Feathers would be escaping on the train and Wallace and Gromit would chase after him, and then the music from the train chasing from the wrong trousers would start playing. But that's probably just my wishful thinking. And that is the end of the review. This was an amazing movie. I'm so glad we got to see Wallace and Gromit back, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. Is this the greatest Wallace and Gromit film there's ever been? It's too early to say because I've only just watched it. Well, fun fact, I'm actually recording this on Boxing Day, the very day afterwards, so it's been less than a full day since I last watched it. But the video's not going up until, of course, as I said, 2025. So that lets you know just how far in advance this has been recorded before it goes up. So yeah, if any of you in the UK watched it, or anyone else around the world who has since seen it now that it is on Netflix, what did you think? And one more thing I want to mention just before the end, one of the best parallels between this movie and The Wrong Trousers was that Wallace spent so much more time with Norbot than he did with Gromit, kind of like ignoring Gromit and not really paying too much attention to him. That perfectly mirrors how Wallace treated Gromit in The Wrong Trousers, because when Feathers McGraw came to be the person that Wallace would rent the spare room of his house to, which is how they were gonna make ends meet, Wallace basically treated Feathers better than he treated Gromit, and it feels the same here. The parallels between Wallace's treatment of Feathers towards Gromit back then, and Norbot to Gromit now, the parallel is very similar. So I really did like that. And the movie ends with PC Macintosh retiring from his police chief role, and PC Mukherjee, who the younger and ambitious one, becoming the new police chief. Overall, apart from my wishful thinking of getting another chase scene on a train, apart from that, I loved this movie. What do you guys think, if you've seen it? But that will be the end of the video. If you've enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and until we meet again, see you next time.